arranger and discipline are like play tug of war all the time, because discipline wants a bit more structure to my day and week, and maybe a bit of consistency there. It really wants me to do things in a similar fashion, and so that it can feel like it is more organized because it's almost the same. And whereas arranger's like, oh, no, we're going to switch it up to figure out what's the best way to do things. And so I often find that they can complement each other well.
Hello and welcome back to Coach Season 3. I am here today with Chani and Aashi, and we are talking about arranger. So I get to talk as one of the crew today again, because this is in my top 5. Actually, I have taken CliftonStrengths multiple times, and arranger has always been top 5. It's even been as high as 1. So this is one of my ride for life strengths that I don't think I could ever unbe. But today we get to hear from 2 other strengths experts, Aashi and Chani. How are you both today?
Good. How are you? Yeah, fantastic. Looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you. So let's start off, Aashi. Give me your top 5 strengths.
Yeah, so my top 5 are arranger, discipline, input, responsibility, and relator.
Awesome. And where are you coming to us from today?
I'm coming to you from Southern California, very close to Disneyland. I'm in Orange County.
Very nice. And are you experiencing nice sunny weather?
Always, Brandon. Yes, we are very spoiled down here to almost always be experiencing really nice sunny weather.
I love that. My daughter just moved to Orange County, so we'll have to talk offline about that. Yeah, she had an opportunity to move near the beach, and she took it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
She's like 4 minutes from a beach. So cool. Thank you, Aashi. Chani, how about yours?
Yeah, so my top 5 are arranger, individualization, relator, empathy, and achiever.
Awesome. So we do have some variants here today, and I'm going to stay with you, Chani. Where are you coming from today?
I am in northern New Jersey.
Northern New Jersey. So you're the opposite extreme, right? So do you get some sunny weather, or is it cold there? What are you having right now?
So today is cold, but tomorrow's supposed to be like 78, and I cannot wait.
Whoa, that's like summer for you. No,
Oh, yeah.
Not quite. I know you get pretty warm and humid, right, in the summer?
But it's definitely exciting for us, yeah.
Okay, so Chani, I want you to tell us, you're a number 1 arranger. Tell us about your arranger strength, how you describe it, how you leverage it, the best of your arranger.
Oof, yeah. I mean, it's so embedded in my everyday, from like my morning routine to, especially it kicks into very high gear being a solopreneur. And I really, really depend on it, from helping me sift through, the day-to-day, building some of that structure, but also wrenches getting thrown my way. And, you have your grand plans, and how do you adapt with them? How do you, shift them and make them even better? For me, I'm always looking for that efficiency. Even from how I'm helping my kids with their homework to how I'm helping do the laundry in the house to, for me, it's always efficiency is always that overall, thread going through of like how, because time is the hardest thing that you want more of, and there's only a certain amount of time in a day. So it really is what helps me think through those harder moments, whether I'm working with a client and helping them align on their goals, or helping them think through their strengths. How can they use them in the best and most efficient way? And then to myself, like there are times where I have to remind myself, if I'm getting overwhelmed, of like, okay, you have a ranger, you can do this. You can do this.
I love it. So when I hear you talking there, and I'm hearing the solopreneur life with mom life, and that has got to be in and of itself a ranger or get run over, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's, And I recently became an executive functioning coach as well, which is like speaks so much to my arranger around helping with prioritization, time management, organization, and embedding that with strengths is like music to my ears. And it just
You have to say it again. What is that again?
being an
Executive
functioning coach.
executive functioning coach. That's a
So
new one.
yeah, so it's executive functioning is all about helping people, whether kids or adults, of how do you function day to day, from organization, time management, delegation, prioritization, and what are those core skills. You do see this show up a lot more with folks who have a diagnosis of ADHD. However, what I love with it is I have the opportunity to combine it with my strengths coaching and work with those who do or do not have a diagnosis, because let's be real, we all need more help in those areas, including myself.
I'm sitting here thinking I'm not diagnosed, but I am fairly certain that people in my life would say that's a given. Okay, Aashi, tell us about your arranger.
Yeah, so one of the first things I thought about my arrangers, I was hearing Hani speak about hers, is, and leading from what you just mentioned, Brandon and Hani, about like how most of us probably all can relate to struggling with a little bit of multiple priorities. And I think that's one of the key things with a ranger, right? It's juggling multiple priorities all the time. So sometimes to the outside, or even sometimes to ourselves, when we try to juggle too many of them, it just seems like we're chronic multitaskers. And, are we lacking any kind of focus in any one area because we're juggling so much? And what I would say to that is, and I'm sure we'll get into blind spots later, is that actually if your arranger is working at its optimal level, it is going to, you're going to be able to fully work through a lot of those multiple priorities with ease, and kind of show others to do it as well. Now, I also have discipline, so I try to single task orient a little bit, and I have my discipline close to help me balance that multitasking. But I love it, right? As arrangers, we like to handle a lot of things all at once, because as well as handling multiple priorities, I am a planner. And so to plan and to organize my day, my week, I actually get really excited about it. So I start every morning with journaling. And I journal about not only how I'm feeling about the day, but like, how am I going to make my day look and be exciting? And what do I have to plan to get done? I definitely live and die by my calendar. So I put a lot of my to-do items on my calendar. But it's nice every morning to go, okay, what am I going to eat today? How am I going to when am I going to eat today? Where am I going to fit this into my calendar to do that? And that's kind of one of those solopreneur lifestyles, right? Where we are kind of fitting the puzzle pieces together of trying to make for the most efficient day and week. How it shows up for me with the work I do with my clients is helping them plan. So when I'm working with individuals or with teams, I'm really talking about what are the goals that they have in mind, and creating a plan around it. I have my own signature iRise program model. I incorporate that with all the individuals and teams that I work with. And it's really about documenting and creating some type of plan of progress, so that as we go through the coaching journey, we can kind of see what are some of the milestones, what are we learning, what are we developing, and really using that individual development plan to carry it out and track our progress. Because I think as arrangers, we enjoy that planning process and kind of seeing how everything fits together and then what we get in the end.
I love that. So, Aashi, as you described, chronic multitasking. So I'm curious, because I've definitely been one who has internally challenged this idea that one can't successfully do it. I know the research out there says, no, you can't. You really switch from one thing to the next. And I've just wondered, then, what is it about arrangers that it seems like they can do it so well? It seems like they can be in the position of the conductor or the juggler. It seems like they just have this gift, this ability to have multiple parts moving at the same time and manage that in one. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think it's because, I mean, yes, I've definitely seen the research, although I always question the research. How many moms were incorporated into that research? Because I don't know, a single mom or a very involved dad who doesn't chronically multitask and have to do it well. And I think that's the key with Arranger is there's evidence of arrangers doing it well. You see the progress, you see the movement towards progress. And so, and then to, even to Hani's point about the efficiency, right? So we're moving towards progress. We're also like creating more efficient ways to get things done so that we can get more done.
I'm so glad you called out moms because my wife and I have 7 children.
Wow.
And I have literally watched, it's like poetry in motion, the way the schedule moves with who's supposed to be where and when. And she's a solopreneur in the real estate industry. And so she's very busy and has appointments and needs to, manage around all of that type of work. And yet it, at times, it looks like a song. It just moves and it goes. But the list never turns off. Because the list is always, well, who's putting laundry in, what's for dinner tonight, who's spending the night where did that kid go? And to date, thank God we haven't lost one. So we feel pretty good that we didn't lose one, because I too have looked at the research and thought, okay, how many real working people did you talk to who have
I'm like
to
working
balance
parents.
family?
Yeah. I'm perplexed by it because I can see if you're in other aspects of your life, but if you're a working parent, you're juggling multiple priorities all the time, constant interruptions. You don't know how your day is going to go because someone's going to forget their homework or their lunch at home, and you're running back to do that.
Yeah. So I want to, Hani, if you want to jump in on this too. So you have discipline with Arranger, and I think that's a very interesting combination. What do you think, Hani? Because I know you don't share. Where is your discipline?
It's definitely lower down. It's not in my top 10. And I think it's really interesting that discipline and the Arranger together. I'm curious of like how those can sometimes be in terms of tension. But like the flexibility of the Arranger, like, does that help with some of the calming down some of the discipline if your discipline's in high gear?
Yeah, you really nailed it, Hani, by saying that the tension. And I often say my Arranger and discipline are like play tug of war all the time, because discipline wants a bit more structure to my day and week, and maybe a bit of consistency there, although, in a different sort of way. But it really wants me to do things in a similar fashion, and so that it can feel like it is more organized because it's almost the same. And whereas Arranger's like, oh, no, we're going to switch it up to figure out what's the best way to do things. And so I often find that they can complement each other well. I look at strengths as like these voices in my head, right? I love that movie Inside Out, just like the girl there has all of these different emotions in her head. Strengths are like these little characters in my head. And so when Arranger and discipline are working well together, it's great. And then when they're at odds with each other, Relator has to step in, my number 5, to like say, all right, everybody needs a break. And you need a break, and you need some time for yourself to figure out how you want to best proceed. So,
okay, so I'm going to ask Aashi now to ask Hani. So, Hani, you have 3 relationship building in your top 5, and so that's also interesting because you lead with Arranger, and then it's boom, 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 boom. Here's your people strengths right there, and then Achiever. So with Arranger, Achiever, which I happen to share with you, top 5. Those are power partners. They really play a lot off each other. So anything curious to you about that, Aashi, with that set showing up together?
Yeah, especially, you're a natural empath, right? So you've got empathy in your top 5 too. So I'm really curious how it shows up for you internally? I know often we talk about empathy as a very external theme about how we interact and relate with others. But internally, how does it show up, especially when a ranger and achiever can really get on overdrive and push you to some pretty big limits there?
Yeah, I'm a natural, I would say, self-proclaimed people pleaser. And it definitely can show up in that way. I could be working on something and just always thinking about, okay, well, what will this person think, or what will this, or what will the impact be? And it's also my individualization also playing a big role in that, especially like when I'm working with clients. I could give, 3 strength sessions. It could be the same intro to strength sessions, but they're going to look different, like, so there's 3 different clients. So to me, like, that individualization, I will turn that up. But the empathy at times, I do have to take a step back at times and say to myself, okay, I have to get this project done. And sometimes, especially, I spent 15 years in corporate HR. You have to deliver messages that not everyone is going to like. And you are not going to be the favorite person in the room. Or when you walk in the room or show up at a meeting, people are like, oh, and they don't love that you're there. And that's hard. That's really hard when you're someone who naturally has those relationship building skills, and you want that relationship with people, but you also know, the achiever in you needs to get things done. And the arranger is helping me, put all the puzzle pieces together for the best way. And sometimes the best way to get something done is not going to be the way that people might like the best. So I've had to turn up the relator piece in me also, of like, how can I, and the empathy too, like, how can I connect with people, help them see that I understand. And there could be instances that I've been in their shoes before. And how can I help them see, that this is something that has to get done, and we'll do it with as much grace or whichever way it needs to be. But that this is the full picture, and helping people come on that journey. I think that's really helpful. And I'll lean also, I have communication is number 7 for me. So that really helps me of how do I tell that story and help someone feel connected with me.
Nice. I just want to add in there, I love when communication shows up with relationship building themes, because I think it's just even more effective when you can really connect with others around. And I'm sure with your empathy, that shows up a lot all the time. So you know what it is that they're looking for and they need. Yeah.
You know how we start our coaching business on a high, only to get absolutely overwhelmed by the business side of things? We're suddenly supposed to be a full-time salesperson, marketing funnel maker, email marketing expert, social media manager, customer service rep, and tech expert all in one. Yeah, overwhelmed. Well, Lisa Cummings, our strengths coach friend, created a membership that gives you an insane member vault that will blow your mind. All the tools, systems, and templates to save you time and money. It's the actual assets Lisa used at Lead Through Strengths to build a successful strengths coaching business. All the assets are yours to customize and make your very own. She even gives you 2 years worth of emails you can use to serve your customers. So check it out at podcast.34strong.com, Lead Through Strengths. Again, podcast.34strong.com, Lead Through Strengths, from Lisa Cummings.
Very good. Okay, I have to ask you about this question now. It has been said that a ranger is command's cousin. A ranger is a very, very strong talent theme. And when you think of the image of the conductor of the orchestra, that person is not passive at all. That person knows what they want, how they want it, when they want it, and you follow what they say or you lose your seat. It's really a strength. I've had occasion to coach several people in ranking positions in the military, so officers up. Many of them led with a ranger, many of them. In fact, I was questioned by some, why don't I have higher command? And I would tell them, well, you have the cousin, because a ranger is such a forceful talent when it can see what creates maximum efficiency, it rarely wants to back away from it because it just knows intuitively, this is the way. This is the way that gets the best outcome. I'm not going to backseat on that. I'm going to push that forward. So curious from both of your perspective on this, because we're going to get into a little bit of the watch outs and the, basements and hinders and blind spots, however we want to phrase that side of a strength. But this feels like one of its assets. It's an asset that a ranger can be strong. It's an asset that it can see what it sees, know what's best, and move us toward definitive motion to achieve that. So either one of you can take this. I'm just curious, you both have this as leading strength. So curious personally how it shows up and then how you've seen it play out.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump right in there because I remember one of the first times I saw my strengths profile, I was surprised to not see influencing strengths in my top 5. And this was like one of the first times I got introduced to it. And I was an executive leader. I've been in executive leadership roles for over 20 years in nonprofit, academia, and healthcare, and had to, lead change a lot and lead difficult initiatives and be the person sometimes in the room not giving the best news. And found that the beauty of a ranger, especially with the people I was around when I did have to, whether it was in times of crisis, so we see command really show up, right? Well, in times of crisis, or it was delivering some tough news, but really being bold and being able to do it. Where my ranger really stood out to help me with those influencing strengths that I may not have had, including command, was that I was able to speak to the details of the challenges ahead and the details to the changes that I was instituting and initiating. Now, some of my relationship building themes were close behind, helping to support it, but really a ranger was front and center to say, hey, not only am I a manager of change, I'm actually a leader of one. And here's how we're going to change and make this better for everyone. And so, yeah, I can totally see how it's in that command sort of, family. I have a significant amount of my individual clients who are physicians, especially surgeons. So if we think about surgeons, in the operating room, in life and death situations, I too have seen either command or a ranger show up for them, which is very interesting that you mentioned that, Brandon, in the military, because it also shows up in certain medical subspecialties. And it's similar in that, they just take a different type of approach to take on a situation. But, a ranger is able to, I think, often communicate some of that detail a little bit better about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that's, where I've seen it show up in my leadership roles in the past as well.
So I'm curious, if I took you home, how does that arranger play out? Because you very likely organize the family, organize activities, organize the trips.
Yep.
Just assuming maybe with it at number 1 that you may have the master calendar control.
Yeah.
Does that play out in your personal space as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the first times as I was reflecting on when I first started realizing like a ranger really shows up for me, was one of my best friends. And I told her like the first time I got my report as well, she's like, yeah, you're cruise director. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're the one who's always planning all the events for all of our families. So it's not just your own immediate family, you're doing it for everybody else. And when something goes wrong, I remember a trip where it was 10 of us traveling and there was like a major strike and we, at the airport, we couldn't get through. We had to change our flights, and then our flight got canceled. I mean, it was a mess. We missed actually half of our Alaskan cruise, but I was the one spearheading in there, trying to juggle it and figure it out, and then figure out the best course of action. What can we do instead? We spent 2 extra nights in a beautiful Alaskan town and had a great time and made the best of the situation. I also have positivity in my top 10. So, so it's like not only organizing and juggling in my personal life, but really taking control of when something goes in disarray.
Awesome. All right, Hani, how about you? So the control question. And for our listeners, remembering that Aashi leads with a ranger discipline with responsibility. So that's quite quite the weight, right, between those three. Those are going to have a force to them. They're going to have that, what you said, that I took control. I helped get us where we're going. And so now we're going to hear a variance because, honey, you're leading with a ranger with an empathy, individualization, but that achiever is still pretty locked in on it wants what it wants. Achiever wants to get the list done. So curious how you relate to that idea of a ranger being like command's cousin, having that control aspect.
Well, and my number 6 is maximizer. So it's an interesting one in there too. I would love if my husband were here to answer this question because I would love to hear his perspective on it. But I think for me, when it comes to a ranger, thinking about it as like command's cousin, I feel like the arranger comes in, like I can come in with, if I see how, there's an issue or there's a situation or I'm working with a client, like Aashi mentioned, I could very clearly see what the steps should be and the journey. But I think for me, the relationship building skills, they give me a pause to say, I might see it clearly, but I need to take someone along on the journey and I need to meet them where they're at. I can't say to them, oh, it's this and we need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's going to overwhelm them. I even think about when I am doing homework with my son, it's like, all right, let's look at like, what do you have? What do you have coming? What do you need for the day? What do you have coming up next week? How do we chunk out what you're studying is? And a lot for me, even working with clients or for myself, a big piece is how am I chunking out the work or what needs to be done so that someone can really internalize it and take ownership of it, and that where they feel it's comfortable for them. And yeah, I'm going to push you. I'm going to try to stretch you, but not to the point of breaking down and overwhelm. And I think that's where the arranger comes in that sense of the command of like, I can see what needs to get done and I'm going to push a little bit where I know I can. But I think the flip side of it is the arranger knows, at least for me, I know when it's all right, let me like pump the brakes a drop. And like, that's where my communication might come in of like, well, I might have to go about this and say it in a different way or ask it in a different way, or my curiosity will get to me. And also having positivity is my number 9. I'm also aware of like, I can totally be your hype person, or I might need to tone that down. So really matching and seeing where someone's at. And I think that's part of those puzzle pieces for me with the arranger of, how am I seeing what that person really needs? And that's like where my individualization plays a really strong number 2 of how am I viewing each person for the unique person that they really are? And what are those things, obviously looking at their own strengths, using strengths a lot with my clients of, what are their strengths that I can lean on that will help get them into that right place and that mindset to help them with whether it's the efficiency or the planning or seeing that bigger picture for them. Because I agree. I think what's great with the arranger is they can see all the details. And what I've worked on and learned a lot is when I was younger in my career, I was always that person, like, give me a project plan to do. I can do, from A to Z. But I always felt the need to tell everyone like every single detail. So I don't know if it was the achiever in me also kind of wanting that pat on the back that I did all of those things. But as I've grown, I've also seen that, I've now built that trust that people can trust that, yeah, they see based on the work or knowing that I can get that done. The arranger knows that. And now it's more of, I don't need to tell every single little piece. I know that for myself, but how am I bringing someone along on the journey? That's what's really important to me so that they're understanding the full picture.
That's good. You have a very good way of getting people to see what you see. And it sounds like the individualization with communication, with the empathy, that you can help them see, here's the way that is going to work best, or here's a path that you could take, while still giving them the respect to choose.
Yeah.
Even if when they choose wrong, you might look at them and go, I don't know if that's going to work, but okay.
The only exceptions to what you just said would probably be my kids, where I'm going to say, I'm going to insert the mom authority on this one. And like, I hear you and I see you, but having ice cream at this hour, not so great. Like, I'm going to insert myself here.
Yeah, I had a feeling we were going to be able to play the mom card, play the parent card. So when you were a part of group assignments in your schooling career, and then into career, how often were you either asked to be or you led? How did that happen often for either of you two?
Oh, all the time. I mean, there were people that they would say, oh, good, I'm in Chani's group. She'll do all the work.
Okay, so I was going to say, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you were almost always.
That's the achiever for sure.
Aashi, were you as well? Were you often the one that led the groups?
I was, but I wasn't always doing the work. So somewhere in there, I figured out like, okay, how do I best delegate this for it to be as efficient as possible? And I think that's, again, some of that. I have individualization in my top 10, but the individualization and relator kind of kicking in and finding other people's natural strengths and getting them to kind of shine. And but yeah, trying to figure out like, okay, who's going to do what? Because I don't want to do all of it. I definitely don't have achiever anywhere near my top 10. So,
well, I would add to this, because we're gonna have to talk about the reality of individualization with a ranger, because they're cousins of a different stripe. They have a very similar thread. Same with maximizer. There's a lot of flowing there. But I will mention to the command's cousin, I recently was helping my daughter and son-in-law prepare to move to Orange County, where you live. And they asked if I would come and move. And I don't like helping people move. And the reason I don't like it is they do it wrong. And so when I show up and they're loading a truck, I'm always standing by going, you're going to ruin your stuff. And in this case, it's Sacramento to Orange County. This is like 350 miles with a mountain to go over at the Grapevine. And so I decide, okay, I'm going to arrange the truck. And so with other people there helping, I at one point just said, just set it right there. I will put everything where it's supposed to go. And this is because I have a ranger and command top 10. And so for me, when it comes up and I just can see where to go, I have a natural propensity to say, this is one of those areas where just let me do this. In my early 20s going through school, I loaded trucks for a living, and I was always really good at playing Tetris with it because I have higher ranger. So whenever we went on family trips, I was always the packer because it's just a natural way to get in there. So that's how mine shows up. Very much I feel the control. If there's an itinerary there. But interesting enough, what you said, Aashi, is that in my role as CEO of a company, I am a very gifted delegator. And I'm curious if both of you have found either with your arranger and with other arrangers that delegation seems to be a gift that comes with this. It has the ability to do that. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Do you ever feel lonely as a coach or solopreneur? What if you had a place where you could surround yourself with like-minded coaches who truly get you, where learning, sharing, and growing together is the norm? Connect, Learn, and Share, started by Charlotte Blair, is a vibrant community of CliftonStrengths coaches from around the world. Hosted on the Circle platform, it's a place where you'll find people, processes, and events to help you grow your business, enhance your coaching and facilitation skills, and thrive in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment. Connect with coaches from diverse backgrounds and experiences. Learn through a calendar of recorded events across time zones, and share your knowledge in a community built on an abundance mindset rooted in strengths. Visit podcast.34strong.com to learn more. Again, podcast.34strong.com to learn more about the Connect, Learn, and Share community.
Yeah, I think it is when the person realizes how to, lean into that strength of a ranger, right? And figuring out that the most efficient way, and I'm curious actually to both of you on this, is because when I've seen a ranger and achiever together, sometimes I'm coaching to this, which is like, you don't have to do it yourself for it to be the most efficient way, which is what achiever may, want you to do more of, right, with a ranger. But with the ranger, it's really identifying what is going to be the most efficient way. And for me, my responsibility, kicking in slowly behind it from the perspective of not only me being, wanting to be responsible to get it done, but me showcasing it externally to help others like figure out how to best shine. So how do I help them best shine by getting them to do a lot of this work? And I think that really helped me very early on in my career. I mean, I didn't know about CliftonStrengths when I was in my 20s, but I was a very young manager at a very young age and realized I could get a lot more done if I was like really playing to other people's strengths and figuring out how to showcase their best selves too. And so, it's been something that's worked well for me. So it's also something I try to coach to, which is, hey, efficiency in a ranger can be not just us doing it ourselves. We know it's a strong executing strength. So we want to get things done, but we can work through others to really get those things done.
How about you, Hani, with achiever? You want to take that first?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I definitely feel like the arranger and achiever, oh boy, like, do I have times that like they butt heads? But then there are times where they work so beautifully together that, like there could be a time where, I could have worked on a plan, or I'm working through a project for a client, and um even perfect example, it even happened this week. I had a proposal to a client. I'm going to be doing a follow-up straight session, and we've talked through it. I've edited the proposal, thought we were like at the finish line, and they got some feedback from their head leader, and we're still going to do it. We're just shifting it a little bit. So like the achiever in me is like, oh, like I just want to get this done. I want to be able to start working on it. But then the arranger in me is like, well, actually, this is going to make it so much better. This is going to make it more efficient. And this is like a better use of the time for what their day is. So it complements that fire from the achiever of like, just go, go, go. Because sometimes what I can find, like when a wrench does get thrown in, the achiever can be the one that's like a little curt or feels like, no, I can't, I have to stick to what I have to do. Whereas the arranger, yes, there is that control piece, but there's that calmness in a sense of like, but pause for a second. This can be better. This can be more efficient. So I find that to be really helpful when those types of things come up. And in answer to the other question around delegation, I saw for myself when I led a team, what really helped was I have developer is my number 8. And that was a really nice compliment for the arranger of, yes, you want, you see the way things should be and who should have it, or who should, if you want to be the one doing it. But the developer in me wanted to help other people grow. And by giving this task off, but also using some other strengths of mine of the individualization or the communication, how can I help people see like this is a good learning opportunity for you? And it was a learning opportunity for me. I mean, learner's my number 10. So I always would like to learn from others of, just because, and I would always say when delegating a task, like just because I did it this way, that doesn't mean that's the best way it should get done. Like, I'd love to learn from you of like, what do you see? How would you do this differently? Obviously, I'm always here to support you, and I'm going to teach it to you the way I know I'm doing it, but I want fresh eyes on it. So giving that invitation to people, I think really helps also feed the arranger of like, oh, this could be so much more efficient if it was done a different way.
So I hear your maximizer, and my maximizer with my arranger very much. I want the best person doing the job. I want the best, and I can pretty quickly these days. I just turned 50. So I feel like as one of my kids at my 50th birthday said, wow, you're a real adult now. And they didn't say old, bless her heart. She didn't call me old. But she said, wow, you're a real adult now. And I said, yeah, I thought I was for a while, but yeah, that's great. And I think at this stage of my leadership, and probably for the last 10 years, I'm very much in tune with who is the best and let them shine and do that. So I could see it really fast. I could find out really quickly who is the best at what, and then I want to position them to do what they do best. Like that is so ingrained in my way of thinking now. So my arrangers constantly looking for who's the first seat clarinet, right? Who's the second seat trombone? Who fits which role to do which play the very best. And so I've noticed arrangers in my career, really good coaches, really good at leading, really good at when I mentioned military, the planning, the project management. I mean, Ace is amazing at that stuff where they just seem to find flow. And certainly in athletics, very much. Lots of arrangers I've found in especially big team sports. So with where we're getting right now, I want to shift this for a moment. I want to ask each of us now to comment on this question. So if we were talking to a room of arrangers and we were going to tell them, here's some things you need to watch out for, and here's some ways you could develop this to be just world-class arranger. So I'm going to start with you, Aashi, and then Hani will go and I'll wrap. But we're going to give some arrangers out there just some of our sagacity. Let's just give them our years of experience now on how we all have this, but we've all coached it. So Aashi, you want to go first?
Yeah, watch out for being too much of that change starter, because most people are not comfortable with change. And so I think people high in arranger strengths, I've seen this in myself, sometimes run into this blind spot. I've seen it in others where we're so quick to change and we think everyone else is just going to come along with us as well. And so that's where it's good to communicate what's happening. It's also
I feel like I should give a confession right now.
Yeah.
For all of my team members watching, I'm sorry. And you all know what I'm talking about. So sorry, keep going.
Yeah.
So true.
And we just naturally fall into that because we are so comfortable with change. And so be careful, to watch out for that. Communicate out what you're doing. Maybe to, Hani's point earlier, be careful of too much detail as well, which is my second one. Sometimes we're communicating so much detail that it can really overwhelm the other person or our team. So really look at your audience and figure out what is it that you need to communicate about the change to them. And, third, have you asked permission to be doing this? Are you in the right position to be doing this? I'll give you an example. I work for a food bank as part of my voluntary service. And the first times I went, I totally want to switch it up. I wanted to switch up their assembly line. And I had to stop myself to go, you know what? Just because I think this is the best way to do it may not be the best way to do it. Let me give it some time and position myself, get some trust with the team around here, and then position myself to start making some suggestions and changes and asking some permission around it. And that was a far more effective strategy, but it took me years to come to understand that. So I'm hoping that by mentioning this, I'm accelerating any of the listeners out there with arranger to be able to pause and think about what is the best step in terms of change and efficiency, and is it really what's best for the team at the time now?
Awesome. Hani?
Yeah, I think, similarly, I would say for arrangers, when things are feeling very overwhelming, I just remind yourself that you have that strength. There could be a lot coming at you, and take a breath. Because I think sometimes like that, the gnarly side of an arranger can be, going into overdrive or, feeling I got this, or they can maybe be a little snippy. So take that breath. You can figure it out. I think especially if anyone feels they have that imposter syndrome, the arranger can really help you of knowing that you can figure it out. Give yourself that space to think. For me, my favorite thing, even like, how Aashi mentioned journaling, like for me, a pen and paper is the best. I just need carving out some time. I similarly live and breathe by my calendar. It's a color coded, and if it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. So giving yourself the tools, and I remind myself too a lot of times the way that I would coach someone with a ranger might be different than how I am to myself. So remembering to be kind to yourself too. And I think for rangers, what's so great is just staying curious. You're always thinking about what can be, and you're able to adapt in real time. And similar to what Aashi mentioned, not everyone else can do that in real time too. So just remembering that might be where the destination is, but it might take some people a little bit more time, or you might need to look at what your influencing skills are to help get them that way. And really just remembering, as we were talking about the delegation, like don't try to do it all yourself. I know, as you mentioned, Brandon, around, the orchestra, you can be in the orchestra as an arranger, but you're not playing all the instruments. Like you have one, and but the arranger is going to understand how they all play together and everyone's role and what the importance is of how everyone needs to be together and the efficiency of it. But just remembering that that's really important about the role you play, and that you might have this really big picture and stick with it. Like don't stray from it. But to me, it's how do you lean on your other strengths to help you bring it to life in the best way possible for who your audience is.
That's great. Thank you. You both did fantastic. I am realizing we're rounding the bend on our time here today for this episode. And so for the benefit of our listeners, I'd like to give them some insights into how they might find you. So Hani, if you would like to tell us a little bit about your work and where our listeners might find you, that would be great. And I'll remind everyone, executive functioning coaching is something that you're doing. I know you called that out specifically, thought that was a really cool service. But overall, Hani, what are you up to?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. And feel free. I love to always connect with folks. Also love to meet people, have chats. But I focus on few different parts in my consulting business. I do strengths coaching and team workshops as well. And I also do, as Brandon mentioned, executive functioning coaching. And I do marry that with my strengths coaching. So a little different than what your typical executive functioning coach might be. For me, I really bring my lens from my corporate background as well as my strengths background, because I look at that as a place of how can I lift someone up from the beginning of understanding where their strengths are, because it is a place where a lot of us might be hearing you're disorganized or you're not this, you're not that. So let's first learn about who you are, what your strengths are, and how do we use that to help you get better in some of these other areas. And then I also do HR consulting for different companies, whether I've worked with nonprofits, corporate clients. I have found what's interesting is doesn't matter the size of the client or the industry. Everyone has a lot of the same problems. So it's nice to be able to lean and learn from different clients and how to be able to work with, whether big or small or different industries. I just enjoy working with different people who want to really focus on their strengths, how they can be a better leader, how they can lead with strengths, and just really optimize their team for their best performance.
Thank you, Hani. Aashi.
Yeah, so my company is iRise Executive Coaching. So you can find me through iriseexecutivecoaching.com or as well through LinkedIn. And we specialize in working with individuals and teams in conflict. So think of me or think of us when someone says we can't work with them and we can't work without them. So what do we do? And so we have a program for disruptive behavioral coaching as well as for working with dysfunctional teams. And we mainly specialize in healthcare, academia, and nonprofit. So thanks, Brandon.
Very cool. So to our listeners out there, this has been a great conversation. And we want to encourage you to take a moment to reflect on your strengths, especially all of you arrangers out there. If today's episode resonated with you, please do share this with someone that might benefit from learning more about their strengths, specifically the strength of arranger. A huge thank you to Aashi and Hani. They were excellent today to give a lot of wonderful insight into this strength, and we trust that you've had incredible takeaways to grow and learn. With that, thank you again for joining us on Coach to Coach Season 3, and we'll see you next episode.
That's a wrap on this episode of Coach to Coach. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're a strengths coach looking to dive deeper, join the Coach Strong community. It's where coaches like you come together to share insights, support one another, and discover partnership opportunities. Be part of the conversations that are elevating our industry. Email community@34strong.com to join today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Coach to Coach. Stay strong.